In your book, you often talk about Ron Gissing, but can you tell me more about him?
Well, we met him very early when in our sort of touring career, I suppose, because he was someone who it worked very well if we wanted, if we were doing a show, to have a support act that was not a rock and roll band. You know, frequently the atmosphere would be spoiled by having, you know, the sort of bands that were around at the time. They'd either be so bad that they'd spoil the atmosphere, or they'd be so good that the audience would get revved up, and then we'd come on and try and calm it all down again. So Ron was, first of all, we liked working with him from that point of view. The same was true of a man called Ivor Cutler.
Yeah.
And Ivor was the same. You know, he was funny, but he was interesting, and the audience would come and hear him, but he wouldn't in any way distract from what we were going to do. Well, Ron was the same sort of performer, but the other quality that Ron had that we liked was that he was very interested in the technical side of tape recording, and he taught all of us a lot about it. He taught us how to edit really nicely, because EMI at that time was not so interested in training the artists. They had their own apprentices to train, but Ron would show us not only how to edit tape properly, but also the beginnings of tape effects, of running two tape recorders with the sound going through one set of heads, onto the second, then coming back. So there were a lot of the sort of interesting tricks that Ron was really interested in, that he, you know, was able to pass on to us.
Ron told me that you've got nothing to do with several pieces. But I don't really believe him.
I think it's true, because I think what happened was that they worked together on a film soundtrack called The Body, and I think Several Species uses exactly the sort of techniques we're talking about that Ron had originally shown us, but I don't think he was involved in it at all. That makes absolute sense to me.
And in Grand Vizier, in your own Grand Vizier garden party?
No, Ron.
His influence?
No, really. I think whatever there was done by, I think, as far as I remember, I think Norman Smith helped with that and helped with the flute arrangement.
Okay. Funky Dung is to me, the only riff reused from other pieces, because we can hear this bass guitar riff in a piece from the Zabriskie Point sessions.
But Zabriskie Point would have been afterwards, wasn't it?
No, it's just before.
Is it?
Yeah.
I can't remember. I mean, we'd quite often take ideas that would start in one place, and then, I mean, Zabriskie Point has a version of Count with That Axe. It sort of has a version of Us and Them. We were ruthless in taking what we needed, you know, because the idea in one place maybe was started but didn't work properly, and if we could then lift it and move it somewhere else and develop it into something else, then we thought that was fine.
Now, you know, with my students at the university, we take an album and we played it. And last year we played Fictitious Spots. Do you remember the way it was made, this album?
Fictitious Sports was very much really, it wasn't, you know, it was made as a Nick Mason solo album because the record company were prepared to fund a Nick Mason solo album. Of course, it's nothing of the sort. It's really Carla Bley, songs of Carla Bley, played by Nick Mason and Carla Bley. And it was a very good way of making a record that I really wanted to make.
I think for me it's a really good record.
Well, it's got a lot of people I really like working with. So I really like working with Carla, Steve Swallow, Robert Wyatt. You know, it's a sort of record made with friends. So for me, I have very happy memories of it.
So you talk about Robert Wyatt, and this year we played some parts of Rock Bottom that he produced. It's a really strange album.
It is a strange album, but I think it's terrific. I think the songs are great, and it was a very It actually won quite a prestigious prize, I think, in France.
Oh,
Which I think it deserved, because it is peculiar, but it has an incredible atmosphere to it, in my opinion. And again, I love the people who played on it. There's drummer Laurie Allen, a lot of people who I then went on to sort of work with a lot over the forthcoming years.
Are you still the Floyd drummer today?
Yeah, they haven't got anyone else.
But I mean, do we have a chance to hear another album?
I don't think there is any chance of making another album. I think it would take too long. I think Roger and David would find it very difficult to work together. I think working live is very different. It's easier because both respect each other's abilities. As a guitar player, bass player, singer, whatever. Whereas in the studio, I think both would desperately want their own ideas to work. Plus the fact in the 21st century, records, in terms of time, would be far better off spending the time working live than making a record that would then, recorded music is horribly devalued now. It's not given, I say respect, maybe that sounds too pompous, but it's treated as free stuff. You'd pay more for a t-shirt than you would for music. And that is in some ways really sad, because it used to be that, for a few dollars you could buy something that might last you a lifetime. Now, for a few dollars you get music that you throw away when you're tired of it. And I think I think we may regret that in times to come, and we may actually want to remodel the way we treat it. I think it's been said that the trouble with music is that some years ago the internet service providers, but the internet in general, said music, that's what we'll give away, that will be the free toy in the cereal, and that's where we are. And I think to most musicians, well, of course they'll go to the studios, because most musicians would like to record properly for other people to listen to. But in many ways, the effort, the time, is better spent playing live, because people have extraordinary respect for live music and will pay a fortune to go and see it. It's a little peculiar, but if you have to, as an artist, you have to adapt to the world you live in.
Roger was just saying that the period, the Floyd's period that he preferred was the period just before Dark Side of the Moon.
Yeah, I understand that, because he felt that it was much more a shared working environment, and I think he's right. But I think he'd also have to concede that to some extent he helped change the way we did work, and he wanted more control, and he got more control.
Was it really difficult for you to assume the departure of Syd Barrett?
No, it wasn't difficult at all.
Musically?
Musically, no, because although it should have been, because we lost our lead guitar player, we lost our songwriter, we lost our frontman, all just like that. But because it had been so difficult working with Syd for the previous 3, 4 months, 5 months, it was a delight when he went, because we could all go back to the attitude we had when we first started, which was we wanted to be in this band and we wanted to make this band work. And even though we had David miming to Syd's songs for television occasionally, the rest of the time we were playing music together and loving it, because Dave was a lovely guitar player, still is, great singer. And we really, I think all of us would just say it was a great time, because we get on stage and we just knew that we were really comfortable with each other and really enjoying it. And really, that was, the idea of going into a band in the first place, because it was meant to be fun. And with Syd, it had turned into a horror show. It was a worry. We were worried about him, but also we were furious with him. That's one that, it's a sad thing to look back on, but actually we were, we had no idea how to look after him. And so we just sort of muddled along. in the worst possible way.
I think that musically speaking, first in 1965, you were a rhythm and blues band, and
A very bad rhythm and blues band, but a bad rhythm and blues band.
and in 1966, 67, with your first album, psychedelic era, you lost your blues foundation.
Yeah, the blues. Yeah,
Can we say that David Gilmour bring it back to you?
you could say that, and you might be right. There's certainly a resurgence of a slight sense of that R&B thing in playing. Once we'd done Dark Side of the Moon, when we played it live, Money in particular, there's a section in that is an absolute return to, listening to some live recording from '74. It's extraordinary how much sort of R&B there is in it. But whether, I think David reignited it rather than brought it back,
Okay.
single-handedly brought it back, I think. But reignition would be the word.
You just talk about live recording of 1974, but there is no live recordings, official live recordings.
There will be, in September.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things specifically we will release, is the Dark Side show from '74 in Wembley.
Yeah, and I saw that this is for Dark Side, for Wish You Were Here.
Yeah, and
The War
next year.
Okay, with a lot of remastered album.
Lot of remastering.
Remastered.
Yes, yeah, and quad mixes and digital mixes and live things. The idea is to release it all now, because I don't think we'll ever do this again, and I think for people who want physical records, this is the time to do it.
Do you think? I think that it is. Do you think that you're a part of the musical story of the popular music?
Oh, definitely. I think we're part of the story. We're a rather peculiar part of the story, but we're part of it. Looking at it from a distance, there's elements where people we've affected, and people who hopefully feel that we've influenced, just as we've been influenced and changed by the people who were around us. I think certain elements of, there are various, in the business, there are different aspects that maybe we've influenced, including the use of film, use of staging, that a lot of people have since taken up, and now probably do better than we ever did.